Hey everybody, welcome back to the NC State Insider Podcast. I'm your host and lead beat writer for NC State on SI, Tucker Sennett, here covering all things Wolfpack and a little bit of ACC coverage as well. So I figured it would be helpful to go through just a ACC weekend recap, how the conference acquitted itself. Obviously, NC State got their win on Thursday night, but the stronger the conference is, the stronger the TV ratings are, and it all kind of trickles down to each university over the course of the season with those new TV rules. So, it's important that the conference does well as a whole for NC State. And, as long as NC State's competitive in the conference, then good things happen to the entire athletic program. And, if NC State strings some wins together and the ACC is a high value conference, then we could be talking about numbers next to NC State's name in a few weeks when they travel to Notre Dame for that game. So just interesting to monitor the conference as a whole as we move through the early stages of the season. So let's start with the Thursday games. Obviously, we had NC State beating ECU 24-17. Talked about it a lot. The Wolfpack defense looked really solid. CJ Bailey had some ups and downs, but mostly ups. Showcased his arm talent really well. Found some receivers he trusts. Overall, an okay win, and you take it and you move on to the next game. Duke also played on Thursday night. They throttled Elon, but had a little bit of a sluggish start, and then quarterback Darian Mensah, who they spent all that NIL money on, really exploded for almost 400 yards and three touchdowns. I believe he finished with 389. So really solid outing from him. Then on Friday night, a couple more games for the ACC. Georgia Tech had that excellent game against Colorado. Haynes King really showed up in that one, rushing for over 150 yards and three touchdowns. Really stellar performance from him. And Colorado obviously couldn't put together a 2-minute drill to tie that game, so Georgia Tech won 27-20. And then Wake Forest had a really ugly game. They only scored one touchdown in the game over Kennesaw, but one. They beat Kennesaw State 10-9 with a touchdown in the first quarter and a field goal. That was it. So Wake did not acquit itself very well. They were expected to be one of the bottom feeders of the conference and certainly looked the part in that game. Saturday, it was a loaded slate, including some really, really high-level ranked matchups. We had LSU and Clemson in that battle of the Tigers in Death Valley, and LSU's defense really stood out and shut down Heisman favorite Cade Klubnik in a big way. Brought a lot of pressure and held Clemson to just 10 points, and LSU won 17-10. Brian Kelly snapped that opening night losing streak and they are off to the races, that LSU team. The other notable ranked match, or well, I guess not ranked matchup on Saturday, but FSU will certainly be ranked after they upset Alabama 31-17. It was certainly the upset of the day. They thoroughly dominated Alabama. The Kalen DeBoer talk has started. Whether you agree with it or not is up to you, but they're going to have those conversations because they are Alabama. And to me, what stood out is Gus Malzahn, the new offensive coordinator of Florida State, coming over from UCF after a head coaching stint there, and obviously his history at Auburn. He really had Alabama's number, and he tweeted, feels like old days after the game. So something to watch there. Obviously, a little bit concerning for NC State in the long run if Florida State is more competitive than we initially expected. They certainly looked to be that in this game. Thomas Castellanos looked solid, especially in those, off the script moments where he can just sort of do his thing. So, um, yeah, that was a big upset. SMU dominated East Texas A&M in a bye game, 42-13. Nothing of note there. Tennessee really took care of business against Syracuse, 45 to 26. However, the final score, the game felt a little bit closer than that final score. Syracuse made a nice comeback, but their defense just couldn't hold up against Tennessee in that game. Pitt dominated Duquesne 61 to 9. Eli Holstein, really solid start to the year with four touchdown passes. BC with a solid performance, 66 to 10 against Fordham. They looked good under Bill O'Brien in his second year as head coach. Louisville dominated Eastern Kentucky. They had a running back that had Isaac Brown had 6 carries for 126 yards and 2 touchdowns. UVA dominated Coastal 48 to 7. Talked about that a little bit. Chandler Morris looked good until he got hurt. UVA has that remade roster with the transfers scoring all the touchdowns. And that is NC State's week 2 opponent. Cal finishing up the night late in Corvallis. They beat Oregon State 34 to 15. Really solid performance from their freshman quarterback, the lefty, who showed some stuff that was certainly exciting for Cal fans and overall a strong Saturday for the ACC outside of that Clemson loss. But the teams that needed to take care of business took care of business, and that's getting that Florida State win certainly increases the value of the conference. And Clemson, even though they lost, their defense really acquitted itself well. They had Nussmeier kind of under control for most of that game and looked really solid. And obviously Klubnik, you can't expect to be held in check like that for most of the game. They lost one of their key receivers as well, and that sort of handicapped the offense in a big way. So that'll be something to watch with them moving forward. Sunday, we had two games involving the ACC, and then obviously Belichick and the North Carolina Tar Heels haven't played yet, so no discussion of that game. But Sunday, we saw Miami, number 10 Miami, upset Notre Dame, number 6 Notre Dame. And what really stood out to me was Miami's defense came up big in key moments. Notre Dame had a chance to go down the field with about a minute left and tie the game after a field goal. Um, Cristobal continues to sort of play things conservatively at the end of games. Opted for that field goal instead of, really trying to put the game away. And left a minute on the clock, which was bold. But Notre Dame's freshman quarterback obviously kind of thrown into the fire in this game, and Notre Dame's offensive line was poor. That was really a surprise. After Daniel and I have talked in the past about how Notre Dame's offensive line is always pretty consistent and almost always really really strong. And they didn't look great. And credit to the Miami defense for rising up. Ruben Bain looked like a serious edge rusher throughout that game, causing a lot of havoc in that backfield for the Irish. And Miami might have a defense. They spent a lot of money on rebuilding that side of the ball. Um, Carson Beck, looked fine. Sort of just had that one really, really unbelievable catch that bailed out an interception more than likely. So, that certainly helped the stat sheet a little bit, but he's going to be, if he can get the ball out quickly and they can get open for him, this Miami team might not lose an ACC game. They just have so much talent across the board. It's a more balanced team than it was a year ago. So they will certainly fly up the AP poll this week and will be talked about as an ACC team, or as a playoff ACC team. But you just have to wonder if Cristobal will be able to sustain this level throughout the season. And then our other ACC game on Sunday was South Carolina and Virginia Tech. South Carolina won that one 24 to 11. It was a close game. Virginia Tech's defense played pretty well, held Lenore Sellers in check for a lot of the game, kept him under pressure. Kyron Drones he had some great moments, sort of similar to CJ Bailey, although not quite as strong a performance. He had two interceptions and struggled late, but he had some throws where you kind of like you're like, oh, this guy has it. Um, Dropped a couple big passes in there. They just couldn't get things going in the red zone, really. And South Carolina had that big special teams moment with that punt return for a touchdown. So they ended up sort of running away with it, although Virginia Tech was there most of the game. So that's the ACC recap. We got that North Carolina game. That's kicking off tonight when I'm recording this podcast. This will come out tomorrow, so don't worry about the days. We'll see what happens there. If you want an official prediction, I think North Carolina is going to win that game now. I've shifted my focus, or I've shifted my belief in North Carolina. I think they get that win in front of a packed crowd in that stadium down there in Chapel Hill. That's all we got today. Thanks for coming to the ACC weekend recap. It was a solid weekend for the conference. We'll continue to talk more about NC State and their matchup with Virginia coming up throughout the week. And as always, please follow our social media channels. I'm on X at Senate Tucker, the website, social media at Wolfpack on SI, also on X. You can find that website on Facebook as well. NC State Wolfpack on SI is the name of the Facebook page. And then you can find more episodes of the NC State Insider Podcast on YouTube at Sports Videos on SI. Um, Press conference coverage, all that good stuff can be found on YouTube there. As always, thanks for tuning in. Hope you all have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time.